So you've most likely clicked on this video to see my new e-bike and what it is and possibly why I bought it. But before we get into the new e-bike, I want to just go over my current e-bike, the one that this new one is replacing, and just let you know how I've got on with it over the last 22 months, which is quite a while for me. So let's have a look at it right now. So there we go, that is my Vitus E-Summit VRS. I was given this bike for free, just for full clarity. This is their mid-tier level one. They do a VRX above this. One I was offered, but I said no to because I didn't want to wait another 5 or 6 weeks. In hindsight, I would have waited for the better model. But this is what I've got, and it's been good enough for me to hold on to for almost 2 years, when I only said to Vitus I would use it for 1 year. So that should tell you what you need to know. This is an alloy framed enduro bike. It's 170mm up front in the fork and 167 in the rear end. This is a mullet bike, or a mixed wheel size, whatever you want to call it. It's a 29-inch wheel at the front and a 27.5 at the back. For me, this doesn't really matter. I've never found myself longing for a smaller wheel, but a lot of shorter riders and more bike parky riders perhaps would really appreciate the smaller wheel on the back. So yeah, 29-inch wheel at the front. These are DT Swiss 1900 hybrid wheels. I don't know what that means. DT Swiss are a good company. I don't know if that's high end or not. I doubt it with the price point of this bike at 4,200 when I got it. We have a Maxxis Assegai double down casing tyre on the front. That's the original tyre, and it's held up really well, all things considered, especially with it being a max grip model, softer compound. I went through 2 rear tyres, but it originally came with a Maxxis DHR2. Again, it was a double down casing, but I managed to pop that in the first day at Kinlochleven. And now we have a Michelin DH22, so a very, very tough casing rear tyre, which has thankfully held up pretty well. The bike, as I said, is £4,200 full retail price when I got it a couple of years ago, and the spec is pretty damn good considering the cost. We have the Shimano SLX brakes, which, despite my complaints about Shimano XT brakes in the past, these SLXs have been really dependable. The only thing I did have an issue with was cooking the discs, so I got much bigger Galfer, thicker discs that seem to deal with the heat better. So that's all I've really changed there. We have SLX for the drivetrain as well. I think the Shimano SLX drivetrain is the benchmark for drivetrains. It seems to have the same kind of shifting performance and reliability as the higher end models, but at a much lower price point. The only negative being extra weight, but on an e-bike, doesn't really matter. The fork is the RockShox Zeb Select, and we have the RockShox Super Deluxe Select shock on the back. Now these, the suspension is the higher end chassis, or the outers are the higher end, but they have more basic dampers inside them and less adjustability. And it's only just recently that I found myself longing to do more adjustments to them to make the bike feel the way I want, because my other bikes have like Öhlins and Fox factory suspension on them, and I can tune them just so, whereas I can't on this. But I think for most people, it's not going to be an issue. And I'll just show you the rear end here. Try. Are we getting that? Yep. Like zero bounce. That, I would say, suspension performance, even with the lower end suspension, this bike is really, really good. I would describe it as very calm on even the wildest of trails. Yeah, super impressed. I can't even imagine how good it would be with higher end suspension on it. But with this more basic level suspension, I've still been seriously impressed. The bike is hugely capable. With the larger travel, the unbelievably active rear suspension, It's, yeah, and a 64-degree head angle as well. Just a hugely capable bike, and I really have enjoyed pushing it and seeing just what it's capable of. There are a couple of negatives though. We'll start with the small ones. Headset cable routing. A lot of people are completely against this, and I'm not a huge fan, but I really like the way that it looks, and I like the fact that it's nice and neat and tidy. And for the 22 months that I've owned it, I haven't had to change the headset. It is about due now, so the new owner is a friend and he knows about this. He's getting a good price, so that will have to get done. But for almost 2 years now, I've not had to do anything with it, so it's not really been a problem. And I think overall, the neatness of the bike outweighs the extra hassle. Another thing is well known on these bikes is the battery cover. It just has play in the middle. There's only fixings at the top and bottom, but to their credit, it is a removable battery, so that's a positive. And all I did for this was just a bit of tape. I've not got tape on just now just to show you what the problem could be, but yeah, just a bit of Gorilla tape is all I've had on before. I don't need to take the battery out. I thankfully have a way of charging this with the full bike, but if you live in a flat or whatever, that might get a bit tedious having to put a bit of tape on it. But it doesn't matter, even if water gets in there, it comes out down here, so it's not hugely an issue. I've read that this bolt can undo down at the bottom. It's not been a problem for me. All the bolts have been good, all the bearings have been good, and the frame quality overall has been excellent. My main problems, however, are with the Shimano EP8 motor and the battery. We'll start with the battery. The battery has been fine, it's been reliable, it's 630 watt hours, but I find that this is not as efficient as the 500 watt hour battery and motor combo I had on my 2017 Levo. So that might actually just be all the motor, but even with the larger capacity battery, we're not getting the range out of it that I could on my smaller battery before, on older technology. The motor itself, it's good. You definitely have to ride Shimano more like a regular bike. It responds well to a good but narrow cadence. So it's very similar to riding a natural bike, which is a good thing, but also a bad thing in more technical and steeper climbs. But my main issue is, this is my third motor. The first one had an EO10 code, which is a very common thing, and the speed sensor went on the inside of the motor. It needed a new one, that's fine. But then that one, the bearings for the bottom bracket failed, and now this is my third motor, which is just brand new right now. I haven't done anything with it. That's going to the new owner. But yeah, 3 motors and a lack of inefficiency, and it being required to ride in a very narrow power band are basically the reasons why I want to get rid of this bike and try something new. So overall, I would say a very good bike, especially for the money. Pretty dependable from Vitus's point of view, and while I have had a bad experience with Shimano, you may not, and this motor and battery combo is in far higher end bikes. So yeah, the warranty is good though. You get a 2-year warranty every time you get a motor replacement, so it's more of an inconvenience than anything else. So my new bike and replacement for the Vitus E-Summit is a Mondraker Crafty XR. This is the highest spec you can get for the alloy version, but you can get the carbon version, but it's at least £2,000 more, even on sale, than this bike. It is 170mm travel fork, 150mm travel on the rear. We have 29-inch wheels front and rear, so we've lost a little bit of travel in the rear compared to the Vitus, but we have gained a little bit more in the wheel size. Speaking of the wheels, they're Mavic D-Max, which back in the day when I was younger, these were absolutely the wheels to get. Reading the reviews on these new ones, they're really quite good, and I like the fact that it's straight pull spokes that you can adjust from all on the outside. On the inside where you'd expect rim tape is actually all solid wheels, so sealing these on for tubeless was dead easy. The tyres wrapped around these are Max's DHF at the front and a DHR on the rear. They are 2.6 inches wide, which is the chunkiest tyres I've run for a while. My concern is they are the harder compound and they're only the Exo Plus casings. I would rather softer on the front at least with double down casings. But we'll see how it goes. When they go pop, I will replace them with better tyres, if they go pop, that is. Quite clearly we can see the Öhlins suspension, which very much dominates the look of this bike. The fork is the RXF 38 at 170mm travel, the exact same fork that I have on my DV8 Claymore, and very much played a part in my decision making for buying this bike. On the rear we have the TTX Airshock. I have the coil on my Claymore, so I'm keen to see how this Airshock gets on, but overall I absolutely love the way that the Öhlins suspension performs and the way it makes a bike feel. Now, the Öhlins played a huge role in my decision making to buy this bike, but the criteria I already had before that point was to have a Bosch motor and ideally a 750 watt battery, and that's what I've got here. From everything I've seen online, the Bosch is the motor to go for at the moment, followed by the Brose motor that you find in Specialized, and now that SRAM powertrain on the likes of Transition and Nuke-Proof Megawatts. Yeah, this motor is fantastic. I've demoed this motor and this battery combo on 3 bikes now, and the range is outrageous, and the climbing ability is almost as impressive as well. For me, it's definitely a step up from Shimano, or at least for the things that I look for in an e-bike. I really like this top tube mount. It's really discreet, but also gives you all the information you need. This top colour here signifies the modes that you're in. It's quite clear and easy to read. And then we have the power levels here as well. You can also change the modes up and down with that button as well. We have a fully wireless, very clean looking remote, very tactile on the left here for changing modes as well. Really like that setup, no unnecessary cables. But this could be a pro or a con depending who you are. There's loads of information on this Kiox 300 display. Super useful. You can pair it with your phone, you can navigate with it, and you have all the information you could ever want. But I don't like the look of it, to be fair. I want this off the bars, but I will need to look into how to disconnect this, because just taking the display off is fine, it's dead easy, and the bike will still run, but you take these cables out and it doesn't work. So if anyone knows how to do this, perhaps it's just a matter of disconnecting it down at the motor, but I would rather declutter. Speaking of clutter, the cable routing is not like the Vitus. It doesn't go through the headset. It comes down and round and into the down tube just at the top of the battery, both sides. This display requires 2 extra cables, which I am not a fan of. It just makes more clutter. Furthermore, the brake cable routing is set up for, well, anywhere other than the UK and Australia. So I run my rear brake on the left, and I would much rather this cable go round onto the opposing side, but it's set up so that the brake is on this side. So yeah, at some point I'm going to have to take the motor out, take the battery out, and chase this pipe round to the other side, and also hopefully remove these cables. But right now it doesn't really matter. Worse things have happened. The rest of the spec is basically SRAM, so I usually have Shimano, but this is the SRAM codes. For the brakes, there are 4 pistons, calipers down the bottom. Probably have to upgrade the size of these discs. I foresee them cooking quite easily, and I might change these code levers for code RSCs at some point down the line, just for more power and more adjustability. The shifting is also SRAM, and it's the SRAM GX setup. I do prefer Shimano, but like SRAM is still absolutely fantastic, and I don't see it as a downgrade, it's just different. So we'll see how we get on with that as well. Dropper post is in-house, I think, and it's a 170mm drop. I do foresee me wanting to change that for longer travel from one-up components. And then the seat is quite funky, it's a Physic and it's quite angular and whatnot, but so far so good. We'll see how we get on with that. So that's it, that's my new bike. I think I have managed to address everything. I'm kind of rushing this video because the Vitus is going away today, getting sold, and I just want to ride this new bike as well. So I think that's me kind of went over most of the reasons why I changed and what I changed to. But yeah, the main thing is I bought this with my own money, so I don't owe Mondrack or anything. I want to just be honest throughout the whole process of ownership. If there are any problems, I can just tell you straight away. And yeah, it puts me in exactly the same place as yous would be. The company I bought it off don't even know who I am, they're just another customer. So yeah, I can be completely open and honest, and it's also a wee insight into some of the key factors for my decision making process on what bike to buy in the first place, based on who I speak to and what I've read online and what I know anyway. So yeah, Bosch motor, 750 watt hour battery and all-in suspension were the key factors, along with the really good geometry after I demoed one of these bikes as well. So yeah, exciting times ahead. I'll try and ride this bike plenty and give you guys an idea what it's like. Nice. Starting to get a bit better with the corners now as well. Heavier impact, dealt with it well. Nice.